they're going to be gone. We can't wait. We can't put it off.
We need to continue doing this kind of work because we know for a fact that we're going to continue uncovering more valuable items that need to be cataloged.
What we're lucky to be able to find is organic materials such as wood, animal bone, pollen, potentially plant remains as well.
We really want to let the people of Montana know that there's very deep heritage to their state.
For many tribes, I think that seeing those mountains from off in the distance saw them as actually oases and actually not so much the wilderness areas, but actually the places where you would find people and resources and other things like that.
Every time you find one of these artifacts in an ice patch, that is a record of humans on the landscape, in the landscape, people of the landscape.
So with the ice patches, we do find that they are retreating, not only throughout Yellowstone National Park, but throughout the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, throughout the Rocky Mountains, throughout North America, and across different places in the globe.
We're finding this material now because there's a changing climate. So there's this absolute urgency to go out and see if we can identify it to help our own current understanding of what happened in the past, but also to save it as a resource for people in the future who might also want to ask questions of it. Because if we don't intercept it now, none of these things are being created anymore.
Point one is that they are using it, and point two is it's not transient, just game hunters up there. There's people living in entire family groups at these elevations. Maybe not year-round, but they're there for part of the time.
The core for this came about really as a result of the Forest Service being willing to take a risk on something that had some potential. It wasn't something that we had observed. As it turns out, when we found the first archaeological material in this part of the world, it was the southernmost occurrence of archaeological material in association with ice patches anywhere in the world.
You look out across this landscape and it looks empty, and we sort of envisioned it as that because it's a designated wilderness. In the areas where we've surveyed intensively for the last 15 years, on the average, we find about 30 stone tools per hectare. So look out across that area and think of sort of every bit of space that you could fit a football field in, having about 30 prehistoric artifacts in it. You say, boy, people have really been up here. They've been really intensively using this place. That use intensity goes back 10,000 years at least.
Finding that foreshaft in 2007 was one of the real game changers because it was definitively made by humans. The foreshaft is the projectile that would have been used to take down the game animal. Because it's got the conical base, we can tell it was designed to be detached from the main shaft, remaining embedded in the animal and taking that animal down.
It's so exceptional that the ownership marks, my God, that sort of almost connecting with that individual in the past is pretty much unheard of.
That's over 10,000 years old for that particular artifact. So that in and of itself was another game changer. Sometimes that's the nature of an ice patch, to have just one artifact that we find, at a given location. But in this particular location, there were multiple artifacts which just reinforced and reinforced and reinforced the nature of the resource and the potential for it at this latitude. So what we're looking at here is, again, it's just a portion actually of what we've been able to identify in association with these ice patches. And the ice patches, the thing that is happening is that on the net, they are retreating in size. Organic materials don't fare so well in those sorts of contexts. So you can have all kinds of stabilization challenges associated with them. It's fun to see, when looking at these specimens, the extreme level of sophistication and knowledge that the people who made these tools and then wound up having them left at these particular sites employed in going to these areas to exploit the resources that were present. So gathering the necessary raw materials to manufacture the shafts, arming them with things like the chipstone projectile points. The chipstone doesn't come from local sources. It's a neat way to put people at different geographic spaces at different points in time. It puts people in that landscape as opposed to looking at it sort of as a more static way.
How did these items move from place A to place B? People kept returning to these same places, so we know that they were important to earlier peoples. That can really provide a very full understanding of traditional peoples who used this landscape.
Well, I think that the ice patch archaeology gives us an opportunity to connect indigenous peoples all over the planet who have been living in these mountainous regions for the past 10,000 years. And it gives us an opportunity to connect with one another as contemporary peoples who are facing the same challenges, modernization. It gives us an opportunity to reconcile with our past heritage, and it gives us an opportunity to celebrate all those beautiful traditions and values that we've inherited.
Because if we don't intercept it now, none of these things are being created anymore. That's another card that comes out of the deck that we're able to use to tell something about our past. It's pages ripped out of the book, and we don't get to see how critical elements of the story were maybe written. And that's impactful to the people this is their ancestral home, right? The Native American people whose forebears made those tools, their ability to interact with that is taken away as a result, it would seem, of climate change. To have a 10,000-year-old artifact exposed, ice that had held it had to have existed for 10,000 years, and to have it melted out totally and gone from the ice patch suggests that 10,000 years worth of ice had disappeared in that location. That's something that we need to take notice of, and that's something that we need to respond to. And I think that's one of the things that's in the minds of the agency when they say, let's pursue this research as far as we can.